We're going to be joined right now, as we normally are this time of the week, by Dr. John Braccio. Time for our psychological segment. Dr. Braccio from Regional Psychological Services of East Lansing, and a lot of times in this segment, we talk about parenting, and especially when it comes to young children, which is personally to me that hits home, obviously, because I have a 6-year-old daughter. But today, I'm going to talk about adult children here, about parents being supportive and not enabling poor decision making by the older kids. And so let's bring in Dr. Braccio right now. He is on the other end of our line. Good morning, Doc. How are you?
Well, good morning, Rich. Always a pleasure to do these segments with you. And I might add that, sure, we do talk about children in terms of parenting, but unfortunately, there are cases, too many cases, where there are adult children that are really making bad decisions and often dragging their parents in. So what we're talking about here today is how do you really deal with that? I think loving parents more and more are needing to get involved, unfortunately. So these are some things to do. First of all, parents want to be helpful. They even want to coach the child, the adult child struggling in life. These are reasonable things to do. And most parents want to see their adult children be successful and are willing to help them. The slippery slope is to make sure they're not enabling them to continue ineffective, poor, and even destructive decision-making. And the following really are some boundaries for parents to use when they have a child that really could be any age, but could be 20, 30, 40, 50, even some coming in even older than that. You want to determine what the problem is, you as the parent, and what you're willing to do, how involved you really want to be. You don't want to be moved by some situations, fortunately not many, but where intimidation, guilt, or threats are even used. Like, you can't see the grandchildren, you can't see them if you don't do what they want. Okay, you want to keep your own emotions under control. You want to recognize, as hard as it is, that swooping in and ineffectively trying to solve the save the day various times just shows you're entering a negative codependent relationship that will only end badly for both. You want to seek out family members, support groups, and friends when emotional support is needed. This can be really very helpful when you're maybe feeling alone when you have this adult child kind of needing this, needing that. And then don't expect the children to fulfill your emotional needs. You have to be able to function yourself in life. And accept you're not being involved after repeated failures is often the best process. May be painful, but it's something that has to be done. And then accept that loving, kind of the tough love idea, that loving your adult child may mean you must let them solve their own problems, resulting from poor decision-making without your involvement. And I think also you can seek out clergy or an experienced therapist, familiar with codependent relationships for emotional support if you're really not able to get out of this. Now, this may be a topic that may seem strange, but most of us, I think, I do regularly in my work, of parents that just keep being drawn into these activities with their children. It can be financial, it can be emotional, it can be raising children, just all kinds of things that can happen. So you do have to be strong and realize that, kids come through us, not necessarily to us, to always be there needing help. And that doesn't mean we don't help a child that needs help, an adult child. But when we start getting drawn in over and over, it really is time to back out and recognize that we love the adult child, by not just trying to save them all the time, particularly when it doesn't work.
Yeah, and this can really apply to I'm listening to all this, and I'm kind of going through this as well with my first grade child. So really, whether you're talking about younger children or as you said, adult children, it's kind of all one and the same. There are some similarities, but at the same time, there are some differences depending on the stages of the child's life. And and I kind of do stress, just by personal experience, when you say seek out support from family members or by a clergy or a therapist, that can go a pretty long way to helping parents in whatever situation that they're in, doesn't it?
Well, that's true, Rich, and I think your point's a very good one. I mean, if you have a 6-year-old daughter, as delightful as I'm sure she is, there's still that you have to be setting direction, trying to be helpful. There, I think, though, the role you have to be involved. Okay, it's the same for the 6-year-old. With the 40-year-old, 50-year-old, you want to be involved and help as much as you can, but it gets to the point where you just back out. Now, your 6-year-old may make you tired on a given day that you just say, I give up.
Oh, yeah. Daily.
That will happen. But it's the older person who wants money on Monday, then wants it on Friday, wants you to take the kids for 2 days, and then uses guilt, mom always did this, or grandma always did this, or you don't care, or you've got enough. Why can't you give it to us or to me? Why can't I move in? And that's another one. Moving in, if you let somebody move in, and you want to make sure you have a clear plan on when the person's going to move out. I'm aware of someone who's now actually, not a client of mine, but someone I'm aware of, that is actually going to the court to get out a child that won't move. Once someone's in your home, you can't just throw them out if they've set up residency there. So yeah, these can be very difficult and confusing times, and children, more than any time I'd say I've heard in the past, just anecdotally, but through my work and just from walking the road of life, I haven't run into more situations than now where you have adult children needing and wanting and demanding. So it is important for parents to make good decisions and know when the line has been drawn in terms of, obviously if a child has a bad event, something happens to them physically or happens to children or their children, it would be the grandchildren, or if there's a financial thing, they lose a job. Sure, you want to help the person. You want to try to be there. But when it becomes codependent, where each gets involved regularly over and over in a self-defeating, destructive type of help, give me this, give me that, I need that, and you keep doing it, there's no end to it, then that becomes a destructive thing. It's kind of the old, you want to teach even an adult child how to fish to eat rather than just give them a meal every day. So it's, something, it's tough though. It's hard because if you're a loving, caring person, you want your children to be successful and you want to help them regardless of the age that they are. But you have to realize there are times you have to back out, and that true love is tough love, actually. There are times you just have to say no, and boy, can that be painful if you're a loving, caring parent and you really have already a good child, but one who is just irresponsible. You just can't keep supporting that type of behavior, but it happens every day, and parents don't know what to do, and I regularly talk to people like that over the decades, over the years, unfortunately. So it's a tough thing to deal with, Rich. Very, very hard. Yeah,
it really is. Dr. John Braccio, Regional Psychological Services of East Lansing here. We've been talking about supporting adult children while not enabling any decisions that they make that are questionable, to say the least. And it is tough, regardless of where you're at in parenting and where your child is at in whatever stage of life, whether they're young, they're in school, or whether they're adult age. It's a challenge day in and day out. Dr. Braccio, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Rich, always a pleasure when you're there, my friend. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Braccio. Always a pleasure to talk to you as well. This is the 1320 WILS Morning Wake Up. Rich Herl here with you, filling in for Mike Austin. More straight ahead. Keep it right here on More Compelling Talk Radio 1320 WILS.